If you grew up with markers, a Gameboy, and VH tapes, you're gonna love this. Hi everyone, I'm Jimbo Bernaus, and today I'm bringing you a special tutorial on 90s lettering in Procreate. And I say special because it's a two-part series in collaboration
with me, Aurelie.
An absolute lettering legend. Aurelie and I have been talking about this tutorial collaboration for over a year now, and we decided to make it completely free. When we were brainstorming what to work on together, we realized that the 90s have been one of our biggest influences. I mean, probably the biggest one. And we realized that there aren't many resources out there about lettering from that era. So we prepared a toolkit that you can download for free using the link in the description below. To make it more fun and to make sure that you don't miss both parts, I'm giving you half of the toolkit, and Aurelie is gonna give you the other half in her video. You will find the link to her channel down in the description too. Inside the toolkit we included digital markers because markers were the art tool that we used the most in our childhood, and they completely defined the 90s. We also included some textures and stems from the era like zebra and other illustrative textures, a VHS tape, a Tamagotchi, a Gameboy stamp, even a phone cord. Oh, and there's a color palette too. Let's get started. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is to set up our canvas. So I'm gonna tap on the plus sign inside Procreate, and then I'm gonna tap here again. Now I'm gonna choose centimeters just because I'm based in Europe and that's what I use all the time, but you can use anything else that you want. So you could think about a size that maybe would be printable after. For me, I'm gonna go for something square at 25 times 25. And the reason why I'm going for something square is that I can easily adapt it to something horizontal or vertical after. Now, if you have a bigger iPad like the one I have, you could go with a DPI higher than 300. So 300 would be the base minimum for printing, then it looks perfectly clean and not pixelized. So I think I'm gonna go for a 500 DPI just in case, because then when you do something bigger than 300, you can increase the final export size after without losing any quality. Now for the color profile, I'm just gonna leave the RGB one because probably if I print this, it's gonna be using a laser print and that's gonna be okay. I don't need to use a CMYK and I can easily adapt it later on if needed to. Okay, so I'm just gonna tap on the blue little button. And now before we get into it, I just wanted to remind you a couple things. The first one is that you will find the templates on both Aurelie's page and my page. So everything you see here is included. We have our swatches, the brush set, you can find half here, half in Aurelie's page, the final piece, and the lettering base, just in case you don't want to sketch the whole thing. Now, the second thing I wanted to show you is a little bit of inspiration. That's something that I do all the time. So I went ahead onto Pinterest and I typed 90s design and this shows up, right? So, well, the first thing that I wanted to for sure highlight would be the Seinfeld logos, since I have Seinfeld right here, George's father, saying Serenity now. I don't know if you know this one, but it's really good. And when you press it, it screams. I'm not gonna do it now. But then we've got like a lot of these geometrical shapes. You can see that a lot of the letters were kind of like included inside squares and a square inside another square, the triangles. So you're gonna see that a lot of our patterns are really inspired in this kind of shapes. Also this kind of like wavy lines, the triangle, the diamonds, blah, blah, blah. So you will find that in the brushes. Then you'll see that like the colors were really funky, right? Like you have like this kind of like combinations, very saturated combinations, which is something that I'm gonna go for today. So you could literally do a 90s board and go for something like this. Look at this MTV, for example. You're gonna see a lot of this influence in my piece today. Okay, so now I'm gonna go to Procreate and I'm gonna start sketching. Now, for sketching, I always use my pencils, which is this one that is included in my Patreon. But since we got now this new library, you can go to the classic library here and get a pencil from here, from the sketching tab. So whatever pencil you have, it's gonna be good. Now, you will see that we've got here the whole pack, which you will get by downloading my half and Aurelie's half in her video. But Aurelie is giving you pencils and she's giving you a lot of markers and liners for you to create this piece. You will see that As we go down, we've got like even a paper texture. And then I did some like stipple sprayers and some textures that are gonna give you that really 90s vibe. And then down here, we've got the stems, and we've created a bunch of different stems that really reflect that 90s aesthetic. And even down here, we've got even a phone cord because we're gonna do something cool with this phone. And we've got this wave. Now, I'm just gonna go with the wave to get started. So I'm just gonna stamp this wave down here, and that's gonna be for our main lettering. Let's stamp it here. Now I'm gonna go to Actions, Canvas, Drawing Guide, and I'm gonna enter the drawing guide by clicking on Edit Drawing Guide, and now here I'm gonna change the grid size 1163. I hope that's fine. So tap on the blue button, and now here I'm gonna place this right in the center. You can see that if you have the snapping options on, you will see that the diamond aligns perfectly with the center of this. Now with a new layer, I'm gonna go get a pencil. So I'm gonna create a line that is a little bit slanted, and without lifting the pencil off of the screen, I'm just gonna put it something like this. Tap here, and then I'm gonna move it somewhere around, let's say somewhere here, maybe a bit less slanted, something like this. Yeah, this is good enough. Now I'm gonna duplicate this layer, bring it down, just to understand where is the X height of this, and then duplicate again and bring it a little bit up, something like this. This is gonna help you do this lettering style that I'm thinking about. Now these three lines, I'm just gonna pinch them together, so we've got like this box independently. Okay, so now we've got this, and then finally we are gonna go onto a new layer, and I'm gonna make a rectangle. Now you can do rectangles in two ways. You could either do 4 lines, or you could draw this in one stroke, and then without lifting the pencil off of the screen, you're gonna see that this happens. These are the smart shapes in Procreate. And then when you lift off, you can go to the polyline here, tap on rectangle, or polyline, it doesn't matter. And now I'm just gonna make the rectangle. Something like this will work. Perfect. Now that I have this, I'm just gonna maybe tap on the transform tool, tap on uniform. I'm gonna make it a little bit smaller, I think. And I'm gonna turn off the snapping options. And then with this green dot, I'm just gonna rotate it a little. And I'm gonna place it right here. And then I'm gonna duplicate this. So we're gonna do like 3 here. This will contain the word U, and then 2 more that you can place them differently, obviously. So one is gonna be here, and the other one is gonna be right here. There you go. Now I'm gonna duplicate it once more. I'm gonna make it smaller. And I'll put it right here. You'll see why. So I'm gonna pinch this together and maybe move them so they're in the center. You can also turn on the snapping again and make sure that this is centered. You can rotate it even a bit without the snapping on and see where you wanna place it. I think this will work. Perfect. Okay, so now that we've got all this, I'm just gonna maybe select the 3 of them, just bring it down a little. And I'm gonna start sketching my letters. So I'm gonna go ahead and create a new layer and then select the pencil. In the end, I'm gonna use Aurelie's pencil, the 4B pencil. So I'm just gonna tap on the little N on this layer and bring the opacity down. Perfect. Now I'm gonna start sketching this word. Now today we won't have time to go over the lettering details, and that's why I've prepared the lettering base. Well, you cannot see it here because it's PNG, but you can just import that one and we can treat this as a coloring book as well. But I just wanted to give you a quick rundown of like how I do my letters. So first I do always like this sketch, right? So here I'm doing the word hot with an exclamation mark here. Perfect. Now, once I have this, I usually can control now the angle of this. So I'm gonna make it a little bit more slanted. So I'm gonna tap on distort, and then I'm just gonna distort it slightly because I think that could use a little bit more distortion. And I'm gonna place it right here. Now, another technique that I use is you can go with a pencil, for example, and then you can create one line, let's say this, duplicate it, put it right here. Now pinch it together and you can just make it into a rectangle and then drop a color inside. So when you drop colors, remember that if it floods the whole screen, that means that the threshold is too high. So you can bring it down by going to the left. And there you have it. Now tap on the N and bring the opacity down. And now with this, we have the slant that I want and also the weight of my letters. So I'm just gonna duplicate this everywhere. Let's say, and even here, gonna pinch them all together, bring the opacity even further down. And now on a new layer, I can start kind of making this into my letters. So usually I would follow this to make the H, right? But since I'm doing another style, I'm just gonna use it now for the slant. So I'm gonna do something like this. You see that it goes from thin to thick here. And then here probably I'll do some nice flourish, so something like this. There. And now here, you will see why the third line was here to start with. See this line? So that is gonna be like to do this. And I'll do it all across, so I'll do it in the O as well. And you know what, maybe like we could bring it a little bit more down, so I'm gonna go to the guides. And with the freehand selection tool, I'm gonna select this line and just bring it a little bit down, just a bit. And let's continue with our sketch. There. And finally my T. I'm gonna bring it down a bit because the whole T goes under a little. So if I put it here, it's gonna be too much. I'm just gonna bring it down. There. And now with the exclamation mark, same thick up and thin down. And right here, we would have our first word. Now, if you were to make this clean, you can just bring the opacity down, and then with a clean marker, let's say with the perfect outliner marker that Aurelie is giving you, we can go here on a new layer and just make this solid. But you can use any brush that you want here. Just wanted to show you a little example of how this would look like. So I'm just gonna erase it for now, and I'm gonna go sketch the second word. So for the word wicked, we are gonna go, so I'm just gonna pinch here. I'm gonna go to the Procreate library, and then I'm gonna go to basics, and I'm gonna pick the Stanley brush. Now this is a monoline brush, and it's gonna be perfect for this kind of letters. So I'm just gonna show you how to create, for example, the letter K. This is for the word wicked. So I'm gonna put this here, and then you can duplicate it for every word. So for example, for the letter K, that would be here. So I'm just gonna pinch it together, bring the opacity down, and now here with a pencil, I'm just gonna follow this stroke. So I'm just gonna bring the wave down as well, and I'm just gonna follow this. You can see that here I'm just following that same stroke. You will see that I'm changing from eraser to my brush just with my pencil. That's because I have the Apple Pencil Pro and I've got the squish option. So if you have it, you can go to your iOS adjustments, go to Apple Pencil, and you will find the options right there. But yeah, if you're interested and you cannot see it, you can always just send me a message and I'll help you out. Just make sure that everything is monoline across the whole, more or less, right? I'm telling you that if we were doing everything by scratch, it could take us up to, I think this would take me up to an hour and a half probably to make it like all clean and stuff. So maybe, yeah, definitely better for you to go find the template so you learn the steps, and then once you have time you can create your own letters just by doing this. Perfect. So you see now you would create the letter K, and now we could duplicate this, for example, and if we were to go here we would do the same, right? So we would just go down here, 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 and now here following this. Little trick here, but like the horizontal stems, so everything that goes horizontally is a little bit thinner than our main vertical stems, okay? But here you get the point of this whole thing. So do the same up here. And the same right here. For the one in the middle, you shouldn't do it strictly in the center, but you can do it a little bit more up. This is a visual alignment and it's gonna look better because our eyes interpret it like it's in the middle, but it's really not. It's just like a little bit more up. So now here you could finish the word wicked. And now here, instead of sketching UR, you could go ahead and probably use a font so you can go faster. And so we're gonna go to Actions, Add Text. And here, just gonna make this bigger. And with the caps lock, I'm just gonna go and type UR. Now here you can select a font. I would say that it would be cool to maybe use some bold font like this one, or maybe like something that is even bolder, something that is black or heavy. But for the example, it's gonna be fine. So bring it here, make it more or less as big as you think it could fit here. And now tap on the types layer, rasterize, go to the selection tool, the freehand one, select letter by letter, and just adapt it in this little squares. If you see that it doesn't fit, you can always make it smaller and then give more weight after, since the whole thing is going to be smaller. Or you could even go to the free form and just make it a little bit, you can definitely like transform it and make it a little bit more tall, so it adapts good to your squares. But yeah, pick the font that you like and continue doing that with the whole thing. Now that little one here. And this here. Okay, so I'm gonna leave it at this. Just remember to finish Kit. Great, so let's see the next step now. Oh, by the way, before we move on to the next step, I wanted to show you something. So let's say that you have cleaned up the word hot and maybe like the W, right? Now you would go to hot and you would duplicate it. You would bring this second one here. Let's say somewhere around here. You could bring the opacity down. And then you would join these corners to create this lettering 3D effect. So right here. Now this would also be covered. Then here. Then right here. I'm gonna show you with the letter H. So that would be if you want to do your 3D basic lettering effect. So what I've done here in this tutorial is to actually do an outline of the whole thing, because in the 90s they were using a lot of outlines in letters, so that's what I wanted to do. Also we're gonna be painting it with markers after, so it's gonna be even better. And also the template that I prepared for you is also just with an outline. But again, this takes a little bit of time. So what I'm gonna do here now is I'm just gonna pinch together these layers, let's say. Just gonna isolate them again. You can isolate layers just by tapping right here without lifting off the pencil. And you're gonna isolate this. Now, let's bring the opacity down of the whole thing. And on a new layer, and with this basics Stanley brush, if you have your own monoline, you can also do it like that. I'm just gonna tap inside, and I'm gonna go here to stabilization, and I'm just gonna bring the stabilization up and the streamline up. So now the brush is just a little bit more stable and it's easier to use. Now we're gonna pick a thickness. I would say like maybe like a 2% would be nice, or like whatever, like a 1%. Let's go with 1%. And I'm just gonna go do the whole outline. Now here I use something that I call the compound curve technique, that it's like instead of doing the whole thing and then without lifting off the pencil, you remember that the iPad, well, Procreate helps you create the smart shapes. But instead of doing that, I'm just going curve by curve. so it's easier to control. And now you can edit it here as well and just make sure that it follows the right path. But again, just do non-complex curves, and then you will find, if this happens, for example, tap on line and then switch to arc. Sometimes it thinks it's a line, but it also recognizes it as a curve, but it goes with the first option that it thinks that you went for in the beginning. So now you can continue doing this outline, and then for the 3D, you do the same. And then here, you know, you would continue blah, 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 and you would do this whole thing, but obviously cleaner. And you would have this outline done. Now, for the W, I've done the same, but instead, I brought it to the left, to the bottom left, right here. So another technique to do the outline would just be also like you bring the opacity down of the both things, and without joining, if you know where things go at, you would just, and this goes over time with practice. You can see that you could also do it like this. But again, don't remember to go step by step, and don't go that fast, because otherwise it's just gonna look not so good. But I hope that you get the point here. Perfect. Okay, so I'm just gonna erase this, and I'm gonna bring all this into a group, and I'm gonna name it sketch. Now here I would go ahead and maybe even like flatten it or do another Procreate file. So we could do that. Go to the gallery. Let's duplicate this file. Let's go inside, tap, flatten. I don't need this. So I'm just gonna turn it off just in case I have it. And now here I'm gonna go to my files, and I'm gonna bring the lettering base inside. Perfect. I'm gonna make it a bit bigger because I think this was done a little bit smaller. So if we make it just a little bit bigger, it's not gonna happen. Nothing is gonna happen. It's not gonna get super pixelized, don't worry. Just a little bit. It's not the best thing you can do, but it's gonna be fine. Great. So I'm gonna place it somewhere right here in the middle. Okay, now I'm gonna go change the colors. So let's change first the background color. I'm gonna go to layers, background color. I'm gonna pick this blue. And now on a new layer with a bit of white. And now with this white color, I'm gonna go to here, basics as well. And I could go to the little raven. I think this should be okay. Yeah. I never got to try these brushes until now. I'm always using mine, so yeah. I think Kyle did a really good job creating this basic Procreate brushes. So I'm just gonna go here on, remember, on a new layer, and just add a little bit of white right here at the center, maybe a little bit more. That's it. Now I'm gonna create a new layer, and with one of these blues, let's try this second one. I'm gonna go to our brushes and go to the ordered halftone, and here I'm gonna maybe smaller. Let's see what size. Yeah, I think this one is good, 33%. And I'm gonna cover this entire thing with this halftone. There. Once it's covered, I'm gonna go to opacity, to this little N, and I'm gonna bring the opacity down. I don't want it super visible, so it should be visible, but not that much. There, you see? It looks just like this. Perfect. Okay, so now that we have this, I'm gonna go to my template, which is this one. I'm gonna name it template. And here, I'm gonna go to the selection tool and I'm gonna tap on automatic. And I'm gonna tap outside my letters. So I'm gonna tap right outside my letters and try to find gaps here. For example, we've got this one, and I think this one and this one, this one, this one, this one, and that's it. The D is inside. There's one little one here. Perfect. Okay, so now very important step, go here, invert. And now let's create a new layer on top of our background. And with a white color, I'm just gonna bring it inside. And without lifting off the pencil off the screen, go to the right until everything is white. So like that. Nice. This is gonna be perfect for now. Go and paint straight with markers without messing with our background. It's something that I barely never use, but for this technique I thought that it could be good. So yeah, let's see it. And now I'm gonna create yet a new layer and I'm gonna start adding some of the background elements here. So now that we have this, let's go to the layers panel. Let's create yet a new layer. And now I'm gonna go again with the Stanley brush and just make a little triangle that will kind of like hug this whole thing and make it super 90s. So I thought maybe like we could do it with the color black, obviously, and the line should be similar to the one we have. Great. And now from here, I'm gonna do a line right here. Remember, without lifting off the pencil, I'm gonna put it somewhere around here. Now from here, make sure that you meet this point. I'm gonna do another line that's gonna be like somewhere around here. Yeah, that's gonna be good. Now make sure that this is aligned actually. Perfect. And now let's close it. So for closing it, you could also just like do a line without lifting off the pencil. And then once the smart shape is activated, you can tap on line and zoom in and make it so it meets the points. Perfect. Okay, now I'm gonna do a parallel line. So I'll do this. Something like this. Now let's do it again. And let's repeat the process. Sometimes this is a glitch that Procreate does, you will see. But it's all good after you move it a little. Let's see, I think this is good. And now let's join it. Nice. Perfect. Now I'm gonna move this shape behind the white. And now here, I'm gonna start coloring my piece. I'm gonna do the same as before. So right underneath this triangle line, I'm gonna create a new layer. And now I'm gonna do it a bit different. So I'm gonna tap on the triangle layer, I'm gonna tap here, and then put reference. Now, I'm gonna go back to this layer, select the white color, and drop it in both. You see? Now, everything that we do in any layer will be referenced by this one. But now that I'm done, I'm just gonna tap here and turn it down. Perfect. Now, let's talk about colors here. So, you can literally use any colors that you want. If you're like me, probably you've got like 1,000 color palettes. And if you got any of my products as well, or Aurelie's, for sure you have a ton of great palettes here. But I'm gonna just use this because I felt like it was 90s enough and it looked even kind of like also modern, which is something that I wanted to do. I wanted to combine the both a little. Now, in order to paint, you can find these brushes right here that Aurelie has made. especially the Copics and the coloring markers. And for me, like, I'm gonna show you a little bit what they're about. But like, for example, okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and get this purple color, and I'm gonna create now a new layer on the white triangle, right? No, not on the line, but on the white. I'm gonna tap on it, and we're gonna create our first clipping mask of the piece. Now, here we will paint the inside of the triangle just to get that solid color base, and then we're gonna continue. You could use any of these brushes depending on how rough, on how markery you want the whole piece to look like. The rough inker, for example, is really good to maybe like just ink things that they look like kind of clean with one stroke, and then when you add another stroke on top, then it just becomes darker, just like an alcohol marker would do. Now you've got all this here, for example, like the washed up broad tip. It's really good, really real, but then again, like the more you paint, you know, the more dark it becomes. Now you can choose any color here. I think I'm gonna do a mix in between the Copic marker and the coloring marker. I believe the Copic marker is just a little bit easier to use, because then even if you lift off the pencil off of the screen, it won't give you that super obvious multiplying effect. And remember that when we are playing with markers, we want this to look rough. We don't want this to look clean, otherwise what will be the point, right? So try to find a balance in between this realistic marker effect and something cleaner. I don't want this to look like, let's say, like if we were to use the washed up broad tip, you know, I don't want it to look like super saturated, or even if we go to this old chisel, you know, like I don't want it to look like so messy, because then the piece will be less readable after. But if you use a nice amount of, I would say like Copic and washed and coloring, I think you would be safe for coloring my piece. Now, if you go to the coloring marker, it's gonna get like this piece a little bit darker. But what you could do as well is to use both, right? So let's say now we are using this one on top of the other one. There. Let's make it a bit, say we're doing it like darker. And then, if you see that it's too dark, you could always go ahead, pick this purple, and just throw it inside. And you're gonna see that you're gonna go back to your original color, but with the effect. Now, for the outside, I'm gonna use a yellow color, and you're gonna see how cool it is to actually paint all of this. Perfect. So now let me show you how to paint this, and maybe the letter H, or like part of it. Now we know how to paint the background, right? So I'm gonna go to the letters white layer, not the line, remember? And then I'm gonna tap on the new layer button, and then I'm gonna tap on the layer, and I'm gonna do a clipping mask once again. Now we are gonna get to paint the letter Y here. That's the first thing that we are gonna do. So let's paint this one first. For this one, I decided that I'm gonna use a pink. So I'm gonna use this pink as a base for this part right here. And I think I'm gonna use the Copic marker. So let's paint it all. Remember, go fast, so you've got a bit of the marker effect, that like feeling of like not caring much when you were a child. And that's a bit the whole point. Okay, so now that we have the pink on the same layer, because since usually if you've done like any of my tutorials, you know that I always go layer by layer doing things, but here I'm gonna paint everything in the same layer because we have the line that kind of like divides both parts. So I'm gonna go here in this blue. I think I'm gonna select this second blue, and I'm gonna do the same but with the square here in the background. There you go, perfect. Now here I'm gonna go with the yellow to paint the letter Y. Maybe we could even go with the coloring marker in this one, just so we get a bit more roughness. Yeah, good enough. Okay, so now that we have this, I'm gonna create a new layer on top of this one, also make it a clipping mask. And now here, I'm gonna go and create some shadows. So I'm gonna go with the same yellow, this one right here, and with the coloring marker. And you could even try the other ones as well. The washed up, I think, would look really cool as well. So just make sure that you do a shadow like this. There we go. There. Perfect. Now we're gonna do a pink one. So with this darker pink, I'm gonna do some kind of a shadow that is like this. And I'm gonna go on top of the Y as well. Let me make this bigger. And do something like this. You can also erase if you go outside a bit. Nice. Okay, now maybe the shadow on the blue. So I'm gonna select a darker blue. I think this one will do. And I'm gonna go with the coloring marker for this one. Here the trick is just like to keep changing so you get different textures. That's the whole point. And I'm gonna do a line here and a line here. Maybe you can make it a little bit bigger. There. Okay. Perfect. Now maybe even an extra shadow here. Let me get this one. And now on a new layer, I'm gonna select the white color. And I'm just gonna do some highlights here on the left side. Also right here, here, on the letter Y as well. But you can see that painting with this is very, very relaxing and cool. And that would be it for my first part. Now let's go to the W. Now for the W, I'm gonna do the same. So let's go to the first layer, the one that contains the main color. And we are gonna do the same. Paint this in pink. I'm gonna use the Copic marker. Yeah, better. Less aggressive, I would say. And just paint this whole thing. If you go outside the line, is also okay. You can either erase it or just leave it. Perfect. Okay, now let's paint in blue. Also this second blue, let's paint the 3D part. And remember that since this is a clipping mask, if you go outside your letters, it won't paint. But if you go here, if you go, let's say here, then it would go, okay? So just be wary of that. Okay, brilliant. Great. Okay, So now we go to the second layer, the one that we had the shadows on, and this time I'm gonna do something a little bit different. So with the same marker, I'm just gonna make it a little bit smaller, and I'm gonna do some kind of a wavy effect here. So I'm gonna do something like this. And then paint. This reminds me so much of high school. Okay, now from here, I'll do something like this as well. Feel free to use any shape that you want. We are here to have some fun. Maybe even a little bit here. Now inside, I'm gonna do something like this. Now I would say that the light source comes from the upper left corner. So like everything that is on this side becomes darker. There. Okay. Now maybe like even one more here, just to make it a bit more interesting. There you go. Okay, perfect. So in the lights, I'm gonna tap on this little N, and I'm gonna make this into overlay. And now I'm gonna do, with a white color, I'm gonna do some really special lights here, something a little bit different, just to give it a little bit of that nice effect. So I will do a line like this, doesn't have to be straight, and then one right here, just following kind of like the 3D. This, maybe a bit more. Yeah. And now I will do the following. So I'm gonna go from down up here, and I'm gonna make this line right here in the middle, and I'm gonna do this. Now remember to make this into a clipping mask as well. I think I forgot before. And now here we do the same. So it's gonna be like this little circle. It's gonna finish like this. And then here, same old story. So I'm gonna do this. Now I'm gonna paint it inside. And here we've got some cool lights. So I'm gonna do also this line up here, and here I'll do the same. So you could do a line first and then. And even you could do maybe like a couple details here and there. And now actually in the shadows, in this pink, I'm gonna do something that goes from here till here till here and paint it in. And that would be my W. Now let's go to the H. I'm gonna paint just this part here, or you know what, let me paint the letter O maybe better. So in the letter O, I'm gonna go with the yellow color, with the second one, go to the base color, and let's paint this. I'm gonna make it bigger actually. Perfect. Now the 3D in pink. Once we have it, we're gonna add some shadows. So I'm gonna do something like this. Maybe even a little bit darker. So let's select the coloring marker. It's gonna make it darker just by itself. Okay, perfect. Maybe now one here. And now for the yellow, I'm just gonna do a little bit here, just a little bit darker on this side. I'm not following the same logic as before, but I thought it would look cool. Because then, on the sides that actually touches the 3D, I'm gonna go to the lights, and I'm gonna make here some highlights. Just like this. And following the same as before, maybe with this lighter pink, I can do... Actually, let's go with the white, it's gonna be better. The same kind of lights that we did before. And then here as well, maybe up here. But I really like the slides because I kind of used them when I was painting on my math exams back in high school. So I kind of reused them here, and I'm so happy that I got to play with them again. So, and now finally I'm going to create a new layer on top of everything else, make it a clipping mask. And for this, with the pink, maybe like with this darker pink, I'm gonna go to our brush, the stipple sprayer, and I'm gonna do something cool here. So I'm just gonna make it smaller, and I'm just gonna add this kind of like stipples here, less up and more down. Perfect. And now with an eraser, I'm gonna erase even inside, you see, erase it something like this. You don't have to be super precise, but just so it doesn't touch the main line. And also in the 3D, I don't want them. And that would be it. Now you can continue shading the rest of your piece. And I'm gonna show you now how to add a couple more illustrations here with the stems that we prepared and a couple more textures in the end. Let's do this. Okay, so here's our piece completely colored. And now I'm gonna show you something that I did here. So I created a layer that is multiplying, and it's with this drop shadow of the letters on the triangle. So you can just go ahead, create a new layer, make it into a multiply, and then do this shadow. Or you could also get the color here, duplicate it, and then once you have it, go to Adjustments, Hue, Saturation, and Brightness, bring the brightness down to 0. And then you can place this here, make it into a multiply. So remember that I just placed it as a clipping mask on top of my triangle. And here I can move it a bit, bring the opacity down, and we would have it. Okay, so Now, if we were to create another clipping mask on my purple triangle, I'm gonna go to any texture that you have here. I think I'm gonna use this pattern 4, which is also like this zebra. And I'm just gonna spray here. All of these textures are seamless, so you can just like make it smaller and you won't see where it repeats. Really cool. So let's make it a bit bigger. Like this will work. Just spray it. Oh, and you can also just like go back at it, lifting the pencil off of the screen if you want. It's gonna place automatically at the same position. And now here you can make it into a multiply and bring the opacity down, just so it's there, but not really, like I would always say. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so now that we have this, let's place some of the stamps that we have. So let's go on top of everything else. Let's create a new layer. And then with the black color, I'm gonna go down here, and then here you can just go crazy and stamp whatever you want. So I'm gonna stamp this Tamagotchi here, somewhere here. I'm gonna rotate it a bit, just like put it somewhere here. Great. Then the telephone, which is probably my favorite one because we're about to do something cool. We can also stamp it bigger and then select it with the freehand and just make it smaller, rotate it. So I can rotate it like this, for example, and put it somewhere around here. If you place it on top of some of your letters, it's gonna give that sense of depth, and that's gonna be cool. Now maybe like you could put this lollipop right here. Let's say maybe like smaller there, and maybe we could bring it behind. And then something that I came up with that I don't even know why I did it, but it's like this wave. So you can create another layer as well, so you can control it better. And this wave, I thought, like, why not? We could place it somewhere here, like this. And then we could duplicate it. Go to the transform tool, go to flip horizontally, and bring it here. And the cool thing about it is that now you can just place it right behind the piece. So again, more depth. And now finally, some of Aurelie's signature sparkles. You can place it maybe like, I don't know, one here, maybe like make it bigger and place one here and maybe one here. You don't have to overdo it. And then finally, the phone cord. Now, I'm not gonna show you how to paint this because you already know it actually. And you can reference my final image. Remember that I put it right here so you can reference everything in here. Perfect. Now I'm gonna show you how to do the cord, and we're gonna give a couple more details to our piece and we're gonna be done. So let's go, and I'm gonna actually, like, all the stems, I'm gonna put them all together, all of them. And then on a new layer, I'm gonna go ahead and select the phone cord brush. And here I'm gonna do, you can see that it repeats. Let me zoom in. No matter what you do, it kind of like repeats and it looks like a phone cord. This made me happy when I did it. So we can start here and then let's say do some kind of a shape like this. Let's say that this will go behind, then we could bring another one here. Then one that goes something like this. And then one that does something like this. You can go crazier if you want. Maybe even like this. So it interacts with this shape. Perfect. Now you can bring the phone cord down. For example, let's say in between our letters and our triangle. So something like this. Perfect. And now you can erase some parts, like here, for example. There. And now you can paint it. For painting it, just create a new layer without a clipping mask. And now with a color blue, I'm just gonna go ahead and with one of the Copics, I'm just gonna paint this. Let's say. Remember to put this underneath actually. And you can change this color Let's see, let's go to hue, saturation, and brightness. And I think I did something a little bit outside of my color palette. So something like this maybe would work. Great, and now just add a shadow and you're gonna be done. So on the right side, just gonna add a little shadow here, like this. And then with a white color, we're gonna add some light on the other side. And this is how you get this phone cord. So that's pretty much it. Now, go paint everything else just as I showed you before. Remember to create this white layer underneath. If you don't remember, go back to our letters. And I will just see you in a second, and we're gonna add a couple more things and we're gonna be done. Okay, so this was my final piece before I did the tutorial. You're gonna see that like there's no names on my layers because yeah, sometimes when I create, I'm just not in the mood to name any layers. Probably you know what I'm talking about. So now the thing that we're gonna do here, yeah, this. Okay, on the triangle, for example, you can experiment with different textures. So for example, if you go here, right, and let's say we tap on the texture and we clear it, you could go and play with any of these textures. You could go with the dirty sponge, for example, one of my favorites, and just give that like distressed sponge effect, something like this. Now we could go with something very 90s. I think this one was really, really 90s. And then just play around here with this other zebra texture that Aurelie made, or this one right here. They're all handmade. So yeah, I really hope that you get to use them in some projects. Okay, perfect. Now let's go on top of everything else, make this into a multiply, and go to the paper texture brush, and I'm gonna add a paper texture on top of this. Perfect. Now, once you got this, go to Actions, Add, Copy Canvas. Now you've copied the whole thing. So let's go on top of everything else, 3 fingers down the screen and paste. And now you've got the whole image in one layer. Now, let's go to Adjustments. And here we can add a couple effects. So the first one that I'm gonna do is a little bit of noise. So let's zoom in. And let's add a bit of noise, maybe like at about 20%. Don't make it too noisy, you're gonna lose color. So like 20%. And now that we have our noise, let's go to adjustments again and chromatic aberration. And just let's add just a little bit of chromatic aberration. This would like give you that old TV kind of situation, you see. Yeah, it would actually be really cool to place this into a TV mocap, I think, and give it that like nice retro effect. So anyways, here we have it. That's pretty much it. I hope that you enjoyed this process. I know that we didn't get to see exactly everything, but like this piece kind of like took me a few hours. So I hope that with this process of painting individual elements and all that, you can just have a nice December time to get it done, and I can't wait to see what you come up with. Hope you enjoyed going back to the 90s for a little bit. Now it's time for part 2, where Aurelie will show you her awesome techniques for drawing this piece. And don't forget that you can download the other half of the free toolkit in her video. The link is right below. If you create your own 90s piece, tag both of us so we can share with our communities. Finally, if you want more tutorials like this, make sure to subscribe to both our channels. Alright, go check out Aurelie's video and say hi to her from me.